Well, I want to congratulate you because you've made it to Christmas Eve. And your reward for making this far into December is the week between Christmas and New Year's, where there is so much permission for you just to stay in your pajamas the entire week. There is permission for you to watch your favorite Christmas movie, not once, but twice. There's permission for you to eat baking at all hours of the day, and there's no problem with that at all. You have made it through the crazy month of December. Congratulations. So this is what this has meant for you, is that you have had to navigate your kids' Christmas concerts or your grandkids' Christmas concerts times 1, 2, 3, or 5. You've also had to navigate the very poorly constructed, busy parking lots in Kamloops and in malls. Am I right? What is going on there? You've had to, whether it's Costco or another, you've navigated it. Congratulations. You've gone, you've got the presents, you've wrapped those presents, you've put those presents underneath the tree, you've done your baking, you have done all of the stuff you've had to. You've decorated your house. If you're in the marketplace, you're figuring out year end, or you've put your auto reply on to say, don't bug me, I want to enjoy time with family. This has been it always is insane December, and you've made it this far. Congratulations. But the final boss, as it were, of December, the final challenge was the Christmas cards. Christmas cards, right? So you got your Christmas cards, you got your family picture, you write the stuff, you get the envelopes, and up to like 10 days ago, you even had no way of sending them out. So somehow you've managed the final boss of Christmas, and you've done it. Congratulations, it's amazing. So I had the privilege of writing Christmas cards for our staff and our senior leaders, and so like over 40 cards. And it was a pretty simple task. It was just write a card, put a gift card into an envelope and seal it. All right, so that's what I was doing. But at the end of this amazing privilege I had more gift cards left over than actual cards. So I was like, well, what poor sap is not gonna get the gift card? So I had a staff member like help me fill the envelopes to make sure that there was a gift card in all of the cards. It was awful. It reminds me of the story of the grandmother. And grandma was getting older, and she didn't want to navigate the malls and the parking lots. But she still wanted to bless her grandkids. She had a lot of them. And so this year what she wanted to do is she just wanted to write a nice card and put a check in each card. So she did that. She bought some really, really nice, kind of hallmarky, beautiful picture on the front card, wrote the checks, and then sent the cards off to her grandkids. But with horror, a few days later, she realized that she forgot to put the check in the card. So imagine with me, it's Christmas morning, and all of her grandkids are at the same house, and they run downstairs, and Santa's come, and they open the stockings, and they open the gifts, and the last gift is the gift from grandma. The kind, loving, generous, benevolent grandma, and they know something great is gonna be in that card. And so they all open it at the same time. They're all in matching pajamas, and they open the card. And in the card it says, "Merry Christmas, go buy your own presents." Congratulations, you've navigated December. We are so glad you are here spending some time with us. I joke, but it actually is a crazy month. And so as a church, we've been exploring this idea of like, all is calm. Is it possible to have a different experience of Christmas than kind of what we're used to? And I think the answer is yes. What I want to do is I want to lead you through, I want to get you as close to the Christmas action as possible. Matthew is an eyewitness account of the life of Jesus. And in the first chapter, he tells us the Christmas story in one verse. And here it is in Matthew chapter 1, verse 23, it says this: "The virgin will conceive and give birth to a son, and they will call him Emmanuel," which means God with us. There's just three big ideas I want to submit to you this afternoon. The first one is the phrase, "the virgin will conceive." And I know when I say that, I've lost some of you already. There's maybe skeptics in the room, and you're like, aha, yes, of course, the bronze-aged absurdities of religion. Because we know that this doesn't happen. And so this is enough to just discount the whole thing. And so let me just speak to you for a second about these kind of supernatural claims that virgins are conceiving. And for parents in the room, I'm not going to dive into the biology so that you don't have the awkward conversation driving home. But we just know intuitively that this doesn't happen. And so if you are that skeptic in the room, let me just speak to you for a second. In 1967, there was a sociologist. His name was Peter Berger. And what Berger coined, or the idea that he submitted, was the idea of plausibility structures. That people and cultures have plausibility structures. What is possible? What is reasonable to believe? And so let's just be honest. Let's throw it out on the table. As Western people, so shaped by technology and science, we look at these types of claims like virgins conceiving and all these sorts of things outside of our plausibility structures. It just doesn't seem to make sense. So let me give you 4 things to help you make this a little bit, perhaps, more plausible. First thing is I would love for you to listen to a podcast that I hosted in March of 2021 with a scientist. We outline and go through all of these sorts of things. The second thing I would say to you, if you have trouble with these supernatural claims of religion, of Christianity, of the Christmas story, is I would just say, watch and be careful of your ethnocentrism. What I mean by that is that there are billions of people, not in the West, who believe in the supernatural, believe in the idea of a God who can act freely in the world. And so just because we're in the West, let's be careful to not view everybody else and everything through our one lens, that there are very intelligent people who believe these types of things. The third thing I would say is, if you think this is insane, what I would simply say is, if you're careful to read the gospel accounts, what you're going to see over and over again, that when people hear the news of Mary conceiving in this way, they disbelieve it too. The phrase is, well, how could this be? What they're saying is, we know biology, that this equals that, and this is not how this works. So actually, these people experience it in very similar ways as you do, and yet they still believe. So let's be careful not to discount the scriptures as very silly, pre-scientific people. Lastly, what I would offer to you is simply this. From a Christian perspective, we believe that these things are possible in the natural world because of who God is. The beginning of the scriptures, it says, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And this is the type of God that Christians believe in. The one who has ordered all things, who has written the laws of physics and chemistry and biology. And as this type of God who has power and creativity, he is able to temporarily suspend those very laws he created to act supernaturally in his world. Now, you might think that's crazy, but from a Christian perspective, this is the God that we believe in. And so for me, as a thoughtful person in the West, I believe that this happened because of who God is. And this actually offers you so much hope, because if you are that person who doesn't believe in this type of stuff, what I would simply say is you have problems with your worldview as well. You have difficulty. You have to claim, you have to land in certain areas because of your faith commitments. Your faith commitments that say, well, maybe we're just physical beings without souls, that death is simply just non-existence, that love doesn't exist, it's just neurochemical firings in our brains, that morality is just about preference, that the story of the world is the survival of the fittest, the strong and the weak, and that's all you have. What I would say is that if there is a God, and if Christianity and the Christmas story is true, oh, it is such good news for you, tired Western person, because if there is a God, then morality is true. It doesn't just exist in your preferences, that there's meaning in suffering, that it's not all up to you to sort out, to figure out, and to get better, that there is a God and he cares for you, that your life is imbued and bestowed with purpose and dignity and meaning. This is what is available if the Christmas story is true. The virgin will conceive. The second phrase is, and will give birth to a son. Give birth to a son. So there's 2 things happening. There is a very natural event and a supernatural event happening at the same time. So my wife is a labor and delivery nurse. So I visited her yesterday. She kind of toured me around. My kids were there. We brought her some coffee and a treat like coffee cake or something, just to like, hey, you know, it was Monday and she was working. So as we were there, there's women in labor, like triaging, and they're figuring out what's the next step. And this is my wife bringing babies into the world almost every day she is working. So this is an event. The woman's body takes over. It's a beautiful masterpiece of biology and physiology, and it is natural. This is what happens to Mary. Yet, at the same time, there's a supernatural event happening that this baby's a little different. The way that it was conceived, and his life will give testament to the difference that Jesus is and who he is, that he is fully human. This is a natural event, but there is a supernatural bestowing on Mary. He is God. This is the Christian claim, that Jesus is God and he has come in the flesh. The Latin word, the $100 theological word is incarnation. The incarnation, we sung about it. What it means is simply in the flesh. In the flesh. So my fear when it comes to Christmas is that this is just all silly tradition. We're inoculated by the nativity scenes and the songs we sing. And we brush this off like it isn't a big deal. But my friends, if this happened, the world has changed. Scholars, thinkers, philosophers from every stripe and every tradition claim that this moment, if true, changed the locus of history. It is the fulcrum point of history, because if God became human, things change. Your body matters. The human experience matters. The development of human rights, because if God became man, then everything changes. And in a very unique way, in the marketplace of ideas, in the buffet available to you to help make your life and your existence make sense. This is the only one, the only worldview, religion, or ideology that claims such a thing, that God became human. It is the only option to you that in a very, very, very beautiful way, God can say to you, I know what it is like. It's mind-blowing that God can say to you, I know what it's like. Jesus knows what it's like to go to a friend's wedding and party, to dance and to sweat and to sing and to feast and to be joyful. He knows what it's like, the best moment of your life. He knows what it's like to party with friends, and he also knows what it's like to suffer and die and be beaten and forgotten and scourged. He can identify with you in the best and the worst of your life. He knows what it is like. And if this is true, what I want to say to you is that the whole thing is a story about love. About love. About humble love. A sacrificial love. Because if he's God and he takes up one of these things, this body, that's a long way to go to try to capture your distracted imagination as a Western person today. And his love demanded humility. So think about the question, what does God sound like? For us, man, what does God sound like? He's gonna sound like, I don't know, we're gonna bring him, he's gonna sound like a train, right? He's gonna sound like a train, full steam ahead. Or he's gonna sound like the jet engine of a 747 taking off. It's powerful and it's, right? Or some biblical metaphors. He's gonna sound like a pillar of fire, or he's gonna sound like a hurricane. This is what God is gonna sound like. But the Christmas story counteracts all of that, because here's what God sounds like. The cooing of a newborn baby. The restless cry of an 8-month-old looking for mom because he's hungry. The cry of a 5-year-old boy playing with friends, tripping on a rock and scraping his knee. That's what God sounds like. Do you understand? If you were to understand just for a second about what that is and what that means, I think our hearts would melt. Because if I was going to come, I'd do something way different. If I was going to come, I would do something way different. I had the privilege of attending LA Angels Major League Baseball game on Memorial Day in Southern California 2 years ago, okay? And I love the States. They're so patriotic, and it was like a different immersive experience for this like prairie-born Canadian, all right? It is Southern California Memorial Day. There are jets flying over, helicopters, hats are on hearts, the military is there, they're shooting things, there's smoke coming up. That's how I would come. Just as this isn't in my notes, but just as a contrast, I don't know if you caught how the Grey Cup entered BC Place Stadium this year. It was on a Zodiac with like 4 military people. Like the difference from the States to Canada is just insane. But that's how I'd come. I would come, man, but no, he comes in a manger, and he comes as a baby. Starts in a manger and ends on a cross. And so the last part of this verse, and we'll land here, it says this: to give birth to a son, and they're going to call him Emmanuel, which means God with us. They're going to call him Emmanuel. It's a Hebrew word, and that word means God with us. Where is God? Where is he? In the midst of the mess, we ask. Where is he in the midst of the suffering? Where is he? He's with us. He's not around the corner. He's not delayed. He's not late, he hasn't forgotten, and he isn't absent. Christmas says he's with us, breathing, living, and dying. This is Emmanuel. So who cares? I want to end with 2 things. If this is true, Jesus has come in the flesh, started in a manger, ended on a cross, resurrected on the 3rd day. Here's what this means for your life. The first thing, here's why you should care. Number 1, if this is true, the possibility of freedom is yours. Freedom to be a certain type of person. Freedom from something. Why did Jesus come? You see, Christmas, if you think about it, is an indictment before it becomes a delight. It's an indictment before it becomes a delight. Because why did Jesus have to come? If everything was hunky-dory, why did he come? It's an indictment before it becomes a delight. What he was coming to solve was a thing called sin. And just as I say that word, people are repelled. Kind of like me at the dentist this week, as they bring out their murder tools. And they start to scrape the plaque off my bottom, their front teeth, and you're like, oh, it's coming, and your whole body just dies a little bit in that moment. I realize that is the effect of a lot of the weaponization of the word sin in our world. I realize it. And religious people have used that word to label people and degrade people and condemn people. But actually, properly understood, I don't think it's judgment. I think it's compassion. If we understood the word, I think we'd be more compassionate with each other. Because one of the Christian contributions when it comes to the word sin is sin as a sickness. That has permeated everyone and everything, our social institutions, all levels, all stratas, all people. It is there. And it's a sickness. So I was traveling with my family this October internationally, thousands of miles from home. And everything was really, really great until 4 out of the 5 people in our family got violently ill for a very short amount of time. I'll spare you the details, but we lived in the bathroom. It was one of those things. And that chaos. Like, who's got the ginger ale? Like, it's that sort of thing. And the way that we responded to each other was like compassion. It's like, I know what it's like. This is awful. How can I help you? I'm coming out of my sickness. You just entered yours. What do you need? How do I help? This is, I think, the proper response to this idea of sin is we actually are compassionate to each other because we know what it's like to have it. We know what it's like to mess things up. We know what it is like to be in this place. And so what sin is it's everything that drives you crazy about the world. It's the greed and the corruption and the war out there. And it is also the things that in our lives that we don't want to admit, or the things we have trouble seeing. And I would just say, if you've ever been in a love relationship before, you know what this is like. Where you said the thing that you shouldn't, or you hid the thing that you know you shouldn't, the fracturing of our own lives and the addictions that we have and the things that we carry. And all of this stuff is a product of a world that hasn't gone right. And what sin does is it grabs all life and wrings it out. Life with God, life with myself, and life with other people. This is the reality of the world that we live in. And so think of this with me. A single mom raises a son, sacrifices everything for her, works 2 jobs to pay for the sports, goes to the tournaments, hires a tutor, all the birthday parties shows up for, works as hard as she possibly can. The son grows up, graduates from high school, moves across the country for school. At Christmas time, the mom goes into a health crisis. The son doesn't phone, text, or come, and leaves her on her own. You have a feeling right now, and that feeling is one of justice. It's not right. It's not right. Because of all that she has given, all that she has sacrificed for her son, and this is what she gets. See, listen, she doesn't just deserve respect or deference, she deserves love. She deserves love. And if the Christmas story is true, this is it. If there is a God and he does exist, there is a claim on your life. There is a claim on your life, and there's something you need help with. And so sin cuts us off from each other and from God, but Jesus, born as a baby, dies as a savior. And so you mold your life around him, bringing him from the outer circles of your life into the inner, asking not, God, Jesus, what can you do for me, but how do I now respond to you? My friends, it is possible. If this is true, if Emmanuel is with us in a manger and on a cross, it means you can be free from this thing, this reality that you live in. And secondly, if that is true, you can rest. Freedom leads to rest. You can be free from the incessant work that draws you away from the people and the relationships that you love. In the 1960s, futurists thought that by the mid-'80s, due to technology, that people would be working 20 hours a week. It's laughable. So we live in a world where you're on the treadmill all the time and your soul is hollow. You can be free because look, what Jesus offers is identity apart from your production. You can be free from the impossible standards that you have of beauty, of trying to keep up when you're aging, of trying to be and look a certain way, because the good word that Jesus has for you is that you are made perfect and beautiful the way you are. You can rest from the impossible standards of your productivity. You just got to keep going, keep accomplishing. There's more to do, there's more to be. You can rest from these types of things. You can be free. You can be free from always having to be right. Do you know what would change in your life if you were free from that? I guarantee you that people around you are nudging you right now. If they aren't, they want to. And the dismissing and the diluting of your contribution to the chaos of your life, you can actually own and say, it is me. I do need to change. Because the identity that Jesus gives you is found not in your perfection, but it's actually in your mess. It's in your stuff. You can be free from the negative scripts you tell yourself about yourself. You know the nastiest person in your life is? You. You're the nastiest person in your life. About your worth and your value. And if this is true, there's a better script to tell yourself. You can be free and you can rest from these things. I got one story, then I'm done. The story comes from a foreign land, very far away from here with no water. And in this place, it's so very dry that they have to dig a well. And it's not the kind of well that we think of right now with pails and grass and meadows. This is dry. There is no water. It's a slit well, and it goes very, very, very deep. And it is built like this so people actually enter into the well and climb down into the well to the very bottom. And at the bottom, there's no water. But there are rocks. And people take a pail and a towel and they wipe the condensation from the rocks, wring it out in the pail, and then climb and shimmy their way back up to the well, back up to the top. The story is of a man who goes into the well and he goes down and he wrings out the condensation. And as he's going up, one of the slits breaks and he falls and he breaks his leg at the bottom of the well. And without rescue, he would die. And the community leader, if you will, the chief, hears about this. So what he does is he comes, he takes off his regalia, takes off his royal robe, and he enters the well and he goes down all the way to the bottom. And in an act of super strength, he takes this man, he puts this man on his shoulder, and they both shimmy their way up out of the well and onto dry land to save this man's life. Don't you see? Don't you see? Don't you see? If the Christmas story is true, this story is you. And Jesus, who left his throne in heaven, putting aside his royal robe and his regalia, not ceasing to be God, but coming in as God, he comes down into the mess of your life and your divorce and your suffering and all of this stuff and all of this shame. And he comes and he bestows dignity, worth, and purpose on you by dying on the cross for you. This is the Christmas story, and it demands your attention.